Hi, Taylor. Nice to meet you. I like animals. I like all animals. Ooh, that's tough. I'm going to say cats. But I could have said dogs. Who else wants to play catch with me? Just going to toss it back where there's lots of people. There we go. What's your name?
Hello.
Nice to meet you. You want to ask me a question?
What's your favorite hobby?
My favorite hobby is working. I love working. It's the best. My favorite hobby is probably disc golf. I like to go throw frisbees in the forest. It's a walk with a purpose, you know? Throw it on back. Anybody else want to play catch?
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure you can.
So since you're a serial entrepreneur, what is your favorite product you've made / company you've built?
My children. They're the best product of all time. I've done a lot of fun things. Well, there's a lot to be said for success. So I think probably the most successful company would be the one that I would care most about because it had the greatest impact. We have the most customers, we have the most employees. You know, I've met with customers that I brought on early on, and I met with them years after to thank them for being an early believer in the dream that I was, you know, schlepping. And we've cried together. I'm not sure if there's anything that compares to success when you say, what's your favorite? But I could have easily gone through like all the adversity I faced and all the failures I faced and why those were my favorite things, because they were birthed out of passion and drive, and it didn't matter that it failed. I got an education from it. It's a good question, though. It's a good question. You else want to play catch with me, or just ask me a question? Playing catch is fun. Oh, almost. Well, it can't hurt anybody, so it's just a soft piece of cloth.
Okay, Instagram, my name's Eli.
Hey, Eli.
Instagram Live, Periscope, Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube Live. That's an either or question.
Yeah. Well, I think that it depends on what the goal is. So, in terms of the easiest possible thing to do, it's probably going live on Instagram. It's very simple, and there's no, like, if I just want to go live and I don't want to live for a long time, but I just want to connect with people, it's probably Instagram, right? If I want to go live and I want a great video that's captured and archived, that's shareable, and then also captures on my platform, it would probably be Facebook. So it kind of depends on what the purpose of going live is. So, going on back. So since Eli asked me a question, I'm going to have my three friends in the back stand up and I'll introduce them. That was Eli that just asked a question. He's the founder and operator, creative director of Bitframe Media, and he does directing for some of my live events, and a wonderful creative friend, Ted, holding the phone, Ted Haas. He is many things, but he's the director of ethics at my voice company. I have a company that we're building software for Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, and other voice devices. And so he makes sure that if I or my team does anything wrong or illegal, that he takes full responsibility. Thank you, Ted. Thank you so much. That there is Ted's son, Teo, who I bring as often as possible everywhere I go, because I love to get the perspective of a 16-year-old that I can bounce things off of and kind of do market research. Plus, he's really helpful with social media and all AV type of things. So guys, thanks for coming. We had other meetings earlier and they decided to join me, which I thought was fun. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I've started a lot of companies. I'm a partner in a lot of companies. I very rarely, actually I've never started something and been the sole owner operator. I've only gathered people around me, got usually technical people, because most of the companies I'm a part of are software. So I'll gather people around me, share an idea, we'll start vibing on the idea. My little solo riff on a guitar of business becomes the symphony of all of our ideas together. And then we go and we get the right team, get the right clients, and then oftentimes I will leave that company as it's getting started and do it again. Probably not a good idea. I probably should have stayed at my companies and taken money from them instead. of equity. So that's a learning thing for those that are real hardcore entrepreneurs is you probably should pick your timing and make sure that you extract compensation from the things that you start outside of just equity, because you don't know if equity is going to materialize in anything. I brought a couple samples to share with you of some physical product companies that I'm an advisor or investor or have been involved with. And I did that for a purpose. And then my goal is to share a little bit of my perspective of the future and why the future matters so much. If you have any sort of entrepreneurship bent or even marketing, branding, sales, any sort of pursuit that way, why your vision for the future matters so much. Because one thing you may not understand, and a man named Erwin McManus said it really well in his TED Talk and in his book, Artisan Soul, is that the thing that makes us so different as human beings compared to every other creature on earth is that we have vision for the future. And so vision for the future has a lot to do with your happiness, your optimism, your positivity, your ability to overcome obstacles, to overcome hurdles, and also gives you that thing deep inside that would cause you to want to start something or to tell a story and do something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand out these coffee bags. And I thought it was fun that Keurig was up on the screen. So I'd like all of you to take a coffee bag. Please don't open it yet. I do just maybe hand those back for me. Let me just spread them out. I got some more. Now, I'll have you open these in a moment all together because I want to talk about how many different ways marketing is done. And it's not just what is on the package. So, this is a company called Steeped Coffee. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look at the front and the back of the package. And I'd like you to tell me what, first of all, make sure everybody has a bag. So as you look at the package, tell me something that stands out to you about the marketing, the branding, the packaging of this Steeped Coffee bag.
Fully compostable.
Fully compostable. This, which doesn't feel like it is, if you throw it in a compost pile, it actually will compost. If you compare this to Keurig, so people have called this company the Keurig killer, and the reason why is that Keurig has sold so many of those little cups that you can go around the earth 15 feet wide. It's a pretty serious issue. So as you go back to your dorm, you go back to your home, you go back to your office, and you pop another Keurig in, it's not that you're bad. It's not even that Keurig is bad. They're capitalists. They found a way to make a lot of money, but they haven't necessarily thought through the implications of that much waste. And so one of the things that this company is doing is approaching it as a B corporation, which would be like a low profit approach, and a green corporation, saying every single thing we create should be compostable, because when we look at the long-term, things with our great-great-grandchildren, Keurig is a very big concern for us. So that's one thing. Anything else stand out as you look at this packaging? It's local. Yeah, so this is based in Santa Cruz, California, where I live. I live in Santa Cruz, and then I have companies in Santa Cruz, San Jose, San Francisco, and Redding that I'm a part of, so I'm up here quite a bit. And so this is very local to me. And everything's done locally. We do all our manufacturing in our facility in Scotts Valley. Anything else stand out as you look at this? Yeah.
How easy, like you display the steps, submerge, saturate, steep, and then freeze, it's just like 3 S's.
Really simple. Yeah. So in 5 minutes, I wouldn't go 30 seconds. That would be some watery tasting coffee. I'd go 5 minutes with it. Anything else stand out with the packaging?
A little summary up top.
Yeah, it's a little logo. The little cute little logo. There's another little one that has a man. Anything else? And by the way, I'm not looking that you say something. I'm just wondering. This is market research. Thank you very much. Anything else?
What is NitroSeal?
It's a way of packaging something so it stays fresh. NitroSeal, if you are in the consumable business, then you would understand that NitroSealing something like this would let it last for several months, maybe a couple of seasons rather than several days. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's basically coffee in a tea bag. That's the purpose of this. So when you hold this and you look at the packaging on the front and back, there's marketing being done. They are marketing something to you, right? They want you to do something. What do you think they want you to do when this is in your hand? What's the call to action? Make coffee. Why doesn't everybody open this and I want you to smell the coffee? Wake up and smell the coffee. Oh, I love that so much. So what you're experiencing as you smell the coffee, and you can take it out if you want, it's your bag, I don't need it back obviously. What you experience as you grab this is they're still marketing to you. They're still selling you something, right? You open it and the aroma hits you. So it's not just the packaging that's trying to sell you to pick it up and buy it, or compel you to open up and steep it, but as you open it, your physiology begins to respond. And now you long for coffee, right? And everything about it is continuing to market something to you. And this is a very important thing when it comes to physical products, is to think these things through. Now, this packaging and this company and this product has value as it is. If it was a white bag or black or whatever your favorite color is, hot pink, it would still have value as a product. But putting all the print on the front and back allows it to have greater value, right? Like this disc. This is something that my friends at pocketdisc.com sent to me, okay? Because they make these really awesome Frisbees that they've sold 1 million of, and I love these things. And I've been talking about customizing them for events. Or imagine USF. What if USF made a Frisbee for every single student? That'd be kind of a cool idea, right? Because now they have every student playing with a Frisbee that could last years or decades of play that constantly reminds that student, no matter how long they were here, of their time at USF, right? So even though this Frisbee has value if with no branding on it, you put Google on the Frisbee, you put Google's colors on the Frisbee, all of a sudden it has more complex value. Not just value for fun, but value for promotion. Same thing with this. What if Google, are you listening? Let's talk. What if Google took this package, used the Google colors, put the Google branding on it, and every trade show, they didn't hand out business cards, but their whole trade booth, all their people at trade booths, this was their business card. On this, when you rip it off, it's the person's name and email and contact info, and it's Google's gift to you. Here's a free cup of coffee on us. See, the coffee has value, the packaging has value, but now you add more complex value, more complex marketing to a physical product. Another example would be another company that I'm very thankful to be a part of because it made me a hero to my children. My kids started playing with these cars called MoDa, M-O-D-A-R-R-I. And MoDa was a vehicle about this size, 17 of them, 12 parts. So if you take the 17 cars apart, you have over 1 billion combinations, which is a cool way of teaching young people STEAM, right? Science, technology, engineering, art, and math, because there's all sorts of applications for them in that. Now, we then came up with this. It has a real leather seat, real aluminum, real bamboo. So we're recycling materials as we create our new vehicles, and this is a multi-generational toy. This truck Enduro can withstand anything reasonable, and so it should be able to pass on from my children to theirs, and same with the car. Now, this car has value, right? Like we sell these trucks for 50 and these cars for 25. But what if Google were to make this entire vehicle a Google brand? And what if they took every single one of their clients and they made a special Enduro car that had the client's company logo on it, and they sent this to all of their clients? Google. This is a pitch. What if they took this and Google was the truck and their clients or prospects were the car, and they just had their salespeople send this off to all of their prospects or clients and say, "You're safe with us. We got you." All of a sudden, you took a valuable product and you just added more complex marketing value to it. These are the type of things that you cannot. This is creativity. And this is the basis for all marketing, all sales, all branding, all speaking, all entrepreneurship, all promotion. It all comes down to creativity. It is one of the only things that we are looking at in the future that cannot be commoditized. Web design, video creation, I mean, you name, almost everything's on Upwork, right? Writing, taking photos, they're commodities for the most part. App development, they're commodities. Like, this is a commoditized business that you now get to have somebody that will do the same thing really cheap over in Cebu City, Philippines, or over in, Ukraine in Eastern Europe. They'll do it way cheaper than here because it's just a commoditized service at this point. One thing that is not commoditized is innovation. Now, I'm not saying that artificial intelligence, machine learning will never overtake the innovation and make their own movies and make their own songs, but we know that today, creativity still is very, very, very important. And this is why simple things like a bag of coffee or a Frisbee or some cars all of a sudden can have much more complex applications when you start thinking through, like, how do I take something that has value? Like, in my opinion, a pen doesn't have a lot of value. There's an unlimited amount of pens. This truck does. Like, nobody's going to give you the truck and car. The Frisbee has value. I mean, most likely nobody's going to give it to you. Now, Steep will actually give you 2 bags for free. If you go to steep.com, here's a commercial, you get the free 2 free bags of coffee. So you can get Steep for free, but it's a very inexpensive product, and by you saying, yes, send me 2 bags of free coffee, they now have potentially a relationship with you. So they're basically saying, we will give you something if you give us your attention, and we'll try to keep earning it. But even though these things have value, they have more complex value as you begin to do things like this with it. Like, why wouldn't an organization want this to be their business card? Right? Why wouldn't a school want to have all their students constantly playing with their logo? Right? Why wouldn't companies that are focused on sales want to have a way to physically manifest an example that we have you? You are good with us. We'll take care of you. We're the big truck to put your little car inside of. See, these are creative things that people don't often think about, especially when we're here in San Francisco, where so much of the innovation is about the next Uber, the next Airbnb, the next this or the next that. And the reality is, like, anybody in this room, if you want to make $100,000 a year, quickly, there's a couple things you can do. You can go buy a bunch of stuff at garage sales, buy a bunch of stuff at dollar store, and you can basically just sell it on eBay, sell it on Amazon, sell it on Facebook Marketplace. You can actually make a really serious living just being a person that basically buys stuff really cheap and sells it for more online, because the internet has made that available. So that's one way to make a living. It's not sexy. It's not the next big app or the next big startup, but it is a real wage. But you could also, honestly, you could contact Pocket Discs and just go sell this to university, this idea to universities or to corporations. And I have nothing to do with Pocket Disc. I just talked to them. I thought it was a really cool idea. It reminded me of the car and the bag. I'm like, oh, this is such a cool disc. I love this. You guys ever put logos on it? So they sent this to me as an example. But anybody in this room can go to pocketdisc.com, contact the company. You could probably make $100,000 just going into universities or corporations and trying to sell this. It is, and that's creativity, right? Creativity combined with the willingness to hustle and go after things. And so I am going to talk with you a lot about digital stuff today. And so before I did that, I want to make sure I had a chance to talk to you about physical things, because you can't lose sight of physical things, and you can't lose sight of the fact that there are layers of opportunity with every single thing that's before you, right? Layers of opportunity. For instance, my phone. This phone cost about $1,000, the iPhones. To me, I generate several $100,000 if you counted the lifespan of my work. These phones are generating millions or tens of millions of dollars for me because I'm finding ways to extract value from this item. Now, this phone costs everybody $1,000. Some people don't even get a return on their $1,000, and some people extract as much value out of that product as they possibly can. Same with this. Like, how many parents we've sold 1 million Madari cars. So how many parents had their kids playing with the Madari cars? Right? They're just playing with it. My kids wouldn't stop playing with it. Like, They like this car more than Legos and Hot Wheels. What happened? I was so shocked by it. Then I found out, oh, it's a local company. So I contacted the company. I said, hey, I have some ideas for you guys. So I met with them, gave them 4 different business unit ideas I thought they should do. I'm like, I love your car. My kids love it. You guys should do these things. And long story short, they ended up saying, well, can you please come in as, and help us launch these things as our temporary CMO? And I became a part of the company. You see, a lot of parents had their kids play with Medaris, but not a lot of people thought through a creative idea and said, I'm going to contact them and try to help them because they've helped my children have fun. And then one thing leads to another, right? How many people have opened up a steeped bag? I don't know how many we sold. We sold a lot of coffee so far. How many have opened this up, steeped their coffee, were delighted, were underwhelmed, whatever their experience was, and it was just an experience and it goes in the trash. But anybody can sit and stop and pause and just think for a moment, I wonder if there's something more here for my own agenda. Can I exploit this, not in a weird way, in a good way? Can I exploit this for my good? And so that's one reason why I want to show these things to you, because they're just simple things that were put before me. Like, my kids played with the car, I found this Frisbee in Mendocino, and I like coffee. And so my friend started a coffee company. I'm like, I love your company, I want to help. And then I find different ways as a marketer, as a brander, as a promoter, right, as a storyteller, to extract more value out of it. And so that's one thing I want to encourage all of you, because in a moment I'm going to transition to talking digital for a moment, and then taking more questions hopefully, and then I'll wrap up. I'm not going to go on and on. I don't love monologuing. I certainly don't like being monologued at. I'd much rather have a conversation or a dialogue. But I just want to have something physical to look at. So before I move on, would anybody like to ask me questions, ideally that tie into what I've already been discussing around this stuff? I'm not ready to throw the Frisbee. Somebody's got to ask a question. Ask me a question, anybody. Okay, there we go.
Usually when you go to these companies, do they usually accept your ideas, or do they just push you away, like, we get enough ideas?
Well, for me, they usually accept my ideas.
These are your credentials.
I'm very persuasive. So, and it's the Chrome glasses, to be honest with you. Just, I take these off, you don't want to listen to me at all. Usually they accept my ideas because I've been practicing selling my whole life. I've closed definitely over 3,000 deals in my life. So I have done, at least 20,000 presentations in my life. So there was a time in my life where I would be doing dozens of presentations a day, and I'd be closing several of them. So I've built a muscle in communication and in persuasion that is unusual. So I would just say, like your question, when I go in and I go bring an idea to Modari, or I bring an idea to Pocket Disc, or I bring an idea to Steve, or whatever, do they listen to my ideas? Well, most people listen to me unless they tune me out, because that dude's wearing Chrome glasses and weird rings, and he thinks he's done long. I'm done. I tuned him out. Something else must be. Some of you have already done that. That's cool. I don't need your attention. But for most people, they understand what I'm communicating, and we're tracking, right? And the eye connection and the body language, and I'm asking questions and I'm listening. So I don't come in with a hammer when I communicate. I try to come in with a feather, right? There's 2 ways to persuade people. You can feather them and tickle them to do with your mouth, with your words, what you want them to do, or you can hammer them and either force them against their will in the way that they would like to be making decisions on their own, or completely alienate yourself from them, and then it's just one more time. You're like, nobody listens to me, nobody ever... It's like, well, maybe you're coming in with a hammer when a feather does the job. So I would say that most people that have learned the art of persuasion through feathering techniques, which I don't know if that's even a thing, I'm just making it up right now, will have a positive response compared to people that go in, determine that they know what's best for somebody, not asking questions and coming in to try to get a deal done. So there's just a huge difference there. But yeah, for me, most people listen. And then the issue that I face quite a bit is I can sometimes cause people, which is unfortunate, I'm trying to mitigate this over my career as I become more self-aware. I can sometimes cause people to have expectations of what I may do with and for them that I can't meet, right? So like if Madari heard my 4 ideas and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. This guy can help us do all these things. Like if they would have thought that, that may not have been a good idea because I don't know if any of my 4 ideas are good. Also, I come with a very large price tag. So it cost Madari a lot to bring me in, not just, the details don't matter, but the cost matters, okay? So not only were we not sure if I could do any of the 4 ideas, but I was very expensive, especially for a startup, for me to engage with them. In addition, not all the ideas worked. Like, I thought the best idea ever was a quarter car club, like the Dollar Shave Club. 1 quarter a day, you get a piece of a car every month for your kids. So their cars are always new and fresh. We did a Kickstarter campaign. It was successful, but the idea didn't really materialize. We didn't get the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers just super excited to be part of our subscription plan. I thought that was my best idea. That idea failed. And so there's energy, money, and time that went into that idea, and that was a loss. Now, I had 3 other ideas, and some had different levels of success. Like recruiting a new marketing team, helping with digital, or going after customizing cars and selling to Universal or corporations. Like some of those things worked to some level, but it would be very easy for the guys at Madari to look back and to say, gosh, that dude came in, feathered me, had me caught up in his, tornado of positive energy, and we said yes, we spent all this money and brought him in as a partner into what we're doing, and like his ideas weren't that good. They didn't execute. Like, that guy sucks. That is one of the biggest problems that I will always face if I'm not careful about expectations, right? Like Pocket Disc, when they sent me this Google Frisbee, there's no expectation. I didn't tell them I was going to talk about their company on live. I didn't tell them I was going to tell anybody. I didn't tell them anything. I didn't say I was going to get in front of Google. None of that. I just said, I love the idea of customizing your disc. Send me one with a logo on it. They sent me this, right? The expectations are rock bottom low. It cost them an hour on the phone with me, and they sent me a disc. It cost me an hour of my time, and I got a disc. Now I get something fun and new to play with people, and obviously it helped with us get to know each other and interact, because it had been real easy for us never to actually talk this whole time. I could have just monologued because you don't want to ask questions. Who does? And that throwing the Frisbee at, right, it creates something. So I always have to be careful because what I'm grateful for is that I can communicate so well. What I have to be careful of is that everybody listens to me, for the most part, and opens their heart to like my ideas, like, yes, we want to do this. Then they get these elevated expectations of what I can do as though I have nothing going on in my life and I just want to dedicate my whole life to them and them alone. And then they can feel like no matter how much I do for them, it's always like, man, Ian never did what we thought he was going to. So, any other questions on this stuff?
Because they're eager to listen to your voice back presentation.
Yeah, so I want to talk about voice for a moment, and what I just want to tell you is what I think we're going toward with technology and human interaction, and the reason why I'm focused on voice as not just a marketing, sales, biz dev, branding, advertising tool, but really as what's replacing the computer. So let me ask this, does anybody here use Bixby, Samsung's voice device? Siri? Couple? How about Alexa? Okay, more an assistant. Okay, how about Cortana? Okay, so those are the 5 main consumer brands. There's also business outputs like IBM Watson. And so all of these are, in my opinion, the last interface. Okay, so we went from a computer, right? 10 fingers on keys, and back in the day it was a huge box that made a lot of noise and was hot. We transitioned from 10 fingers, and do you guys know why the letters are mixed up like this? Do you know why the letters are the way they are on a keyboard? So it was easy for people to type typewriter when they were selling typewriters. Just look, typewriter, it's right there. That's literally why the letters are that way. I know, unbelievable. So we went from a jacked up way of communicating with technology with our fingers, because I think it was Remington or whatever, the typewriter company, they wanted it to be easy for somebody to go, typewriter, look how easy it is to use our keyboard. Now we're on small pieces of glass with 2 thumbs, and I don't think that we're going to put neural lace technology in our head. I don't think we're going to implant chips in our body. I just don't think that human beings at mass will do it. I might do it. I think it'd be pretty cool to be able to control tech with my mind. It'd be awesome. I don't think people are going to do it overall. But people will find, I believe, in the next 5, maybe more years, that when they talk to Alexa, Assistant, or any of the voice devices, that they will find that the technology device literally understands them better than their own family. And what's going to be really powerful is when you understand a technology device better than a human. Because these voice devices are learning us. They're learning every single person, and they're learning all of humanity. And if you want to talk about why this matters, like if you have a compassionate heart and you care about the world and you want to see the world a better place, and you have it could be better than it is. How about the 2 billion people that do not read, write, or speak a common language? Can you fathom what it's going to be like in 10 years when those 2 million people have access to voice technology, and now for the first time in their life, they can communicate with the internet in their language? Doesn't have to be English or Russian or Spanish. It can just be their crazy 928th popular dialect. They still can't read. They still can't write. It doesn't matter. All of a sudden, you just made an opportunity for a whole tribe that today make, let's just say, $1 a day. Now, what if they could start generating greater compensation because they start to tell the world their family story? Because they start to tell people how they cook certain things, how they farm certain things, how they paint. The thing about the world is that there's unlimited abundance. Now, we don't understand this in the American capitalist 20th century mindset, and it's still hard for us in the 21st century, but there's unlimited abundance in the world, okay? It's not like there's a pie, and the more pie that you get, the better off you are, and just too bad for the other people. It's all about you winning. That would be if there was just a limited amount of abundance. But because there is unlimited pie, right, it just goes on and on forever. There's no limit to how much you can prosper, and also others can prosper at the same time. So when you think about 2 billion people becoming productive on the global scale for the first time in their entire family history, that's a very, very powerful transformation. Let's talk about voice with elderly. 65 years old. It's a pretty big marker for people's lives. There's over 10,000 people every single day that turn 65 in America. Now, some of you may have grandparents, like I had a couple of grandparents recently that passed away that struggled with things like Alzheimer's, dementia. And so if you've seen that from a grandparent or great-grandparent, an uncle, an aunt, like if you've seen what happens with Alzheimer's or dementia, it is catastrophic, especially for the caregivers. So here's my personal experience. My mom's mother lived with my family for most of my life. So my grandma moved into my house when I was young. I was like 6, 7 years old. Lived with us our entire life until she was 80, and then she found a boyfriend. Go grandma! So, and then she's living with him and kind of coming back and forth. Then she had a couple strokes, and then the dementia, Alzheimer's stuff started to set in for the last couple years of her life. And she moved back in with my parents. My mom would take care of her. She would constantly cry. And her weeping was out of control because she literally did not know who she was or why these people are around me. Like, it was frightening for her. She only knew maybe a couple of us, and it usually was tied to something in her life that just solidified it. So my grandma would wake up on an average morning, and she would cry. And she'd moan all night long. She'd wake up and she'd moan. Doesn't know who she is. She literally, her mind is like, she thinks of her grandpa, right? In her mind, she's a 4-year-old. But she has this 90-year-old body and does it. And it was just really traumatic, actually, for my family. I mean, of course, we were okay, like my mom's fine, but it was hard in the moment. So here's what I think voice is going to do for somebody like an elderly person. I think before too long, what you'll have, hold on one second. This is actually kind of emotional for me, all of it is. So I think what you'll have is you'll have an elderly person wake up, and there'll be a sensor in the room. And the sensor will wake up Alexa or Assistant, or whatever the device is, and the device will come on in that person's spouse's voice that's died. So let's say that it's Jack that wakes up, old man Jack. And what happens is Alexa comes on with his wife's voice, Susie. And in Susie's voice, she says, "Good morning, Jack. This is Susie. You are in our son Ian's home. And Ian's going to bring you your fruit and your coffee. That's what you have every morning. On the TV screen, and now the blinds start coming up, the lights start coming up at just the right physiology of what Jack needs, because the voice device understands what Jack needs. So Jack's hearing his wife's voice. She's not with him anymore. Okay, now he's seeing his son or his grandson. Okay, and now his grandson comes in with coffee and fruit. And then his wife, Susie, says, "Jack, you love to listen to Slayer and Metallica. What would you like to listen to now?" That's probably not Jack's favorite music. But the point is, and Jack says, "Oh, I want to listen to, Frank Sinatra." Now all of a sudden, Jack has a much different experience than my grandma did. Instead of waking up, for most men, it expresses in rage and anger. And I'm not just saying that men and women are like starkly different, but a lot of the time with the dementia, Alzheimer's type of stuff, a lot of men, their expression of the fear and not knowing who they are can be fear, rage, and anger, like scary, where women is anxiety and fear, right? But either way, you just have something very different for humanity. And this is why voice matters. You see, I know Siri sucks. I realize that. Even Alexa and Assistant suck right now. To be honest with you, Bixby might be the most user-friendly consumer product, even though most people don't use it. It's not about today. And my great fear as I think about voice from any biz dev perspective, marketing, sales, branding, because it takes corporations with capitalist intentions to push these things forward, right? Now, humanity can benefit. We can do all sorts of things to protect and mitigate risk, but it takes corporations that have vision for how they're going to sell more diapers through Alexa. And think about it, you're an old person, you really don't want to ask your kid to order you diapers on Amazon. It'd be much nicer to say, "Alexa, I need some more Depends." Like, that's a private thing. Probably better with you and your technology than having to talk to your child about that. That's just an easy thing. But think about the whole life-changing experience of your dead spouse's voice waking you up, telling you where you're at, who's coming in, what they're doing, seeing pictures on the screen, having your favorite music play, and all of a sudden the first 3 minutes of your day is not rage and anger or fear and anxiety, but it's peace. Imagine that your whole life, for all your ancestors, for as long as you know, everybody has barely survived, and most people have 10 kids and 2 live and 8 die. That's your world. Your dialect, nobody else in the world knows it. You don't even know what reading and writing is. And now, in a decade, you have access to voice technology, and you legitimately can be a productive member of society. And your dreams, and your visions, and your creativity, and what makes you uniquely human, and just you, one of a kind, can start to manifest because of what voice tech can do. Now, can you see why being mindful of how this impacts the elderly or the least of these can be powerful when you think about the purpose or reason for being involved in voice? Can you see why me telling these stories to you are more powerful than if I talk about statistics? 50% of searches are voice, and 80% of this, and 37.4% of all statistics are made up on the spot, including that one. Because statistics don't move us. Nobody works at a startup and gives their life up and works for nothing or equity or less than their worth because some statistics or because of, like, it has to be something that moves us. We are very complex creatures, right? We have spiritual components, soul component, physical component. Even physically, it's all over the place. We have a body, we have a mind, and there's a lot of complexity with what makes us and what drives us to action, right? Supreme sells their jackets for as much as they do because they're selling a lifestyle. And because wearing a Supreme jacket means something to certain cultures, right? Because it does something to the consumer. The consumer says, I really want that product because I bought into the lifestyle, or I know how people might view me or see me or think that my clothes are cool. And so these things matter. We are very emotionally driven when it comes to everything, including marketing, sales, branding, advertising, and new tech. You know, one of my great concerns, I do all these future events. So I have an event in 2 weeks at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center on 1st and Howard. And if you are interested in being a part of that event, I did tell Vivian I could probably have 1 or 2 of you come and just kind of be part of my team. And so if that's of interest to you, the website's voiceofthecar.com. It's all about, basically the speakers are from Amazon, Google, Samsung, Microsoft, and a bunch of the car manufacturers. And we're bringing together the voice technology people, the cars, and we're talking about voice tech in cars. So if you want to go to that, then maybe just tell Vivian, and maybe the way I can decide if it's a good fit is you can just write a quick, like, 2-sentence, 1-paragraph response to my sharing with you today. So I can kind of see, like, did it resonate what I was talking about? Now, I do all these events. I've done about a dozen in the last 1.5 years. I'll do another dozen within the next year on the future. And the reason why is that I'm worried that as we watch things like Altered Carbon, Black Mirror, Electric Dreams, Alita, Blade Runner, Terminator, as we watch these dystopic media, personally, I think it's super lazy media creation. I think it's very easy to be anxious, afraid. It's like easy to make people anxious and afraid. Like, it's much easier for me to come in and scare you, like be violent and scare you, than it is for me to come in and fill your spirit with hope and optimism. Do you know how much harder it is for me to try to make you more optimistic about your life and your future than it is for me to scare you? It's not even a close comparison. It takes no energy whatsoever for me to be violent. I would never do that, by the way. But it takes no energy for me to do that. Well, these type of dystopic media is violence. It's emotional violence. And I watch it all. I'm into it. I learn from it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I'm concerned about the impact on society. Because what happens is people will watch these things and they'll be like, wow, that's the future? I'm not going to have kids. That's the future? I'm going to unplug. I'm not going to have a phone. I don't want anything in my house that can listen to me. This is the type of stuff that happens. I don't think that's the future. I think the future is more like Jetsons or Star Trek. And so I'm doing all these events, and I'm creating companies to try and manifest what could actually be. Because never in history has humanity been able to destroy itself. We've come up with creative ways of doing it. We just haven't pulled it off. It seems as though there's a grace upon our lives for all of history that what we create ends up one way or another being of benefit to humanity. And I know there's all the jacked up, wrong, evil, decrepit things in the world, but I would say that many of the major markers are getting better. Less hungry people, less homeless people, talking internationally, less uneducated people. Like, the world is actually getting better. That's what statistics tell us, back to stats. What's more important is, just as it's harder for me to try to fill you with hope and optimism for your school and eventual career than it is for me to scare you with violence, it's also hard to tell a positive story in media, which is why there's not a lot of Jetsons and Star Trek movies, because it doesn't really compel us. It's much more like compelling as a consumer and much easier as a creator to go to the base primal things. of fear and anxiety. The problem for you as a young person is that is going to affect what you decide to do with your life. And it will affect what you think is actually possible in and through you. Because it's very easy to forget all the moments in your life that have been the wind is in your sails. And nothing can stop you. And it just felt like, this is really me, this is really what's happening in my life, this is so awesome. We have these moments as adolescents, as teenagers, as young adults, but we forget these moments because life is so damn hard. And so we just forget in the daily mundane, plus we're constantly smoking the cigarette of social media. And so you're just spun in this cycle, right? But the reality is that it is one person makes drastic impact in people's lives. One person. You know? I started off talking about Lieutenant MoDa, who came here, in the 18th century and founded Presidio and founded the city of San Jose. He was just one dude, just one guy, part of the Spanish army. He came up, landed in Monterey. The general said, go up north and make a name for yourself. He chose to get the priest and 14 men and the women and children and to land right there and start the Presidio and then make friends with the Indians, not do genocide, but actually bond with them. And then he founded San Jose, which now has become, obviously, the Silicon Valley. Just one man. One man that chose not to do genocide with the Indians. One man that chose to make peace with people. One man that chose to bring a priest instead of go and become a warlord. One man that chose to bring families, not just soldiers. One man that chose to go out further and further. And you see Moraga signs in streets and towns. And they married the Pachecos. That was kind of an interwoven family that kind of were a big deal in the 19th century in California. Those are the families that I come from, at least on that side of the family. One person, right? I mean, how many times can you go through history and say it was just one person that did this unbelievable thing, right? Whether it's a spiritual leader, a Buddha or a Muhammad or a Jesus or a Billy Graham, or it's a business person, right? A Jeff Bezos or a Steve Jobs or whatever it is, or an artist, one person, and you can impact the world so greatly. And I just think that voice is something to really explore. I can stand up here and tell you thing after thing after thing about what I think about voice or what we're working on, but I don't think that's as important as just trying to transfer what I believe about your potential to you. And it's fun, right? It's fun to talk products and events and you can, that's all fun, but what would be greater fun is if you accomplish what you are capable of, and if you don't just allow all these things to come and try to steal that away from you. So, thank you for listening to me some more. I would be happy to take a couple more questions, especially if you want to talk about the emotional stuff, or also if you want to talk about deep tech stuff, because I'm pretty deep in the world of voice, blockchain, AI, and all those buzzwords. I'm actually involved in trying to make sure that this stuff does good. So, anybody have a question for me? Yes, please.
Going back to having a voice for old people with
Yeah.
Alzheimer's and stuff,
Yes.
would that be an AI thing, or would that just kind of be like a systematic, same time of day kind of thing?
Well, there'll be some different opinions. Now, there's no such thing as artificial intelligence, just so you know. Unless there is a moment of singularity, there will never be artificial intelligence. And even if that happens, we don't know if tech gets a soul and all these things. But we call machine learning artificial intelligence. Now, all the voice devices are machine learning applied through voice, like the interface of a computer is these keys. The interface of a phone are your thumbs. The interface of machine learning is a voice speaking to you and listening to you, right? So, most likely, machine learning will just continue to advance. I believe our silver lining for the fear, because Elon Musk really scares me when he talks about all the bad things that could happen. So does everybody. I'm like, oh God, that's worse than the movies. So, I personally believe that the thing that will protect us from some of these catastrophic potentials is the distributed ledger, which people would say blockchain, but blockchain's kind of been harmed by the cryptocurrency explosion and crash. But what blockchain is just a third-party ledger system. It just means that two organizations or two people make an agreement, it's on a ledger that a third party verifies. Why that matters is there's smart contracts. So if you've ever used if this then that, is anybody familiar with if this then that? It basically automates the process of doing things you do all the time. So when we apply the distributed ledger technology or blockchain technology to machine learning, we will for the first time be able to feel more secure in holding tech accountable. Now, distributed ledger technology or blockchain will also hold governments and corporations and people accountable, and it will do a lot of things like solve supply chain management and a lot of really wonderful things. But one thing is that it will hold machine learning accountable, right? It'll actually make sure that there is a protocol by which these voice devices must interact with people.
I was wondering, because I read an article that they've made a prototype for that already, and now they're just working out like the ethics of it, because people are worried that the elderly are going to be afraid of it.
I think that there should be a lot more ethics conversations. You know, Ted back there in the hat, he's the director of ethics at my company. I have a brand new company. We aren't even like a real like company, like we have a team, we're building tech, we're doing things, but first three people, right? You were there with me and John. So like first three people was my ethics officer, because I understand my ambition is so significant and the impact on people's lives, if we are successful, is so big that an ethics person to hold us, our company, accountable to our actions is helpful. Yes?
What is your perspective on driverless cars? Just because there's so many people.
Drive me, car! Oh, I can't wait. I'm sorry, I'm just like caught up in this glorious moment right now thinking about being driven by a car. I'm coming back. I'm back. My perspective is it's awesome. And I can't wait for cars to drive me. And people will be much safer driving by me when I'm not driving. For real. So my perspective is that driverless cars will be much safer. People probably won't be able to drive physically outside of special tracks in the next decade because insurance will be unreasonable to purchase. And that cars, in my opinion, are going to become productivity machines, not transportation devices. Today, cars are very unsafe transportation devices. Teslas are becoming safer transportation devices with automated driving on freeways. My vision for cars is that they are productivity machines because voice will be the main interface with the car. And so if you are a content creator or an educator, you will simply be creating content or educating while you're being transported because your transportation device became a productivity device. If you are a student or a content consumer, you will easily be able to consume content or consume education as this is now your productivity pod as you go from place to place. So I see cars transitioning from very unsafe transportation devices to safer transportation devices to extravagant productivity machines. Anybody else?
What is the one thing that we can do to start shifting the media to focusing more on the positive things instead of the negative?
It's what you personally do as you engage with media. It's that it always comes down to one. You know, our ethos and the way that we affect people around us is profound. It's profound. And if you are engaged with political hate or corporate hate or any sort of like aggressive, it's cool. You do your thing, you do you, but I'm letting you know that if you want to make a positive impact on media, you might want to reel back on assuming that you actually know so much and start to believe the best about people and corporations and to start to speak forth life. And so my encouragement is that if a person wants the world to be a better place, they should be a better person. If a person wants media to be a better environment, then they should engage with media in a better way. Is that okay for me to say? Anybody else have a question for me before I hand back over to Vivian? Yes?
You ever heard about this video game called Detroit Become Human?
No.
No? So basically it's this android who's part of this detective who solves murders. Do you think technology with voice and androids will eventually come to that point where we start enlisting their help to deal with real life cases?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so We definitely are going to be engaged more and more in tech. We're going to lean on tech more and more. Tech is going to probably end up doing 90% of the manual work that we do, and people are going to, in my opinion, become educators, students, and creators. That's basically what people will be in the future. And they'll do the thing that they want most. Let me give you an example from Star Trek, okay? In Star Trek, Captain Kirk is in charge of the Enterprise. I'm not a Trekkie. I have not watched very many Star Trek things, but you'll still get the point as I get the point. On the Enterprise is a bartender. In the narrative of Star Trek, this is the narrative of Star Trek, okay? The world is so prosperous. There is so much abundance that everybody's taken care of. Like a good version of socialism, or a good version of like a animated wage for everybody. So everybody's taken care of. Captain Kirk is cool, doesn't need to work. The bartender's cool, doesn't need to work. Now, they both go on the Enterprise. Now they're in space, because they literally don't have to be at home farming and selling. Like, they get to do what they want. They wanted to be explorers. Do you think the bartender hates on Captain Kirk because he's in charge? Or do you think Captain Kirk looks down at the bartender because all he does is make drinks? Probably not. Because the bartender wants to be a mixologist, and Captain Kirk wants to be the ultimate risk taker with all the responsibility on his shoulders. You see, that is what technology will do. Technology will allow people to be the captain and the bartender and still be totally seen and feel as equals, because they're both fulfilling the thing that makes them most them, right? And that's what a lot of what technology is going to end up doing for people, is knocking the walls down of having to do things that are not truly a reflection of who they are, and empowering people to figure out what they really are best at and bring to the world. Like Vivian, an amazing teacher. So with that, I'd like to hand it back to Vivian. Thank you so much for letting me come to your class.
All right, thank you so much, Ian. You brought some powerful